In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you my 2024 housing market predictions. So, if you clicked on this video, you're probably asking yourself, what the hell is going on with the housing market? Is it a good time to buy? Is it too late to be selling if I bought in the last 2 to 3 years? Am I going to be upside down for the next 5 to 7 years while the economy and the housing market recover? Are we facing another global financial crisis like we saw in 2008? And your last question is probably, what are interest rates doing? I'm going to be answering all those questions and more in this video, so buckle up and stick around with me to the end because I will save my silver lining advice for how you can navigate this market successfully and use it to your advantage. So, in this video, we're going to be discussing affordability, ghost inventory, not shadow inventory. This is something totally different. The Airbnb bust that's currently happening, interest rates, and my perception of the impending recession. Here's what we do know. Home prices, interest rates, and inventory levels are all going to dictate housing affordability in the coming years. Housing markets don't suddenly crash. They slowly get worse over time. What many people don't realize is that the economy has a regular pattern. It's like a cycle of good times and bad times, and it keeps happening again and again. The real estate market usually goes through cycles that last for 7 to 10 years. So, if you look back, in 2008, the market started to go down, and it stayed bad until 2015, which was 7 years. Since then, from 2015 until now, in 2023, the market has been doing well. At the end of 2022, prices dropped a bit because interest rates went up, but they have mostly stayed the same or even gone up a little in 2023. You might wonder why this is happening when interest rates are at their highest in 22 years. My theory is that there haven't been many houses for sale in the used market, not new ones. We'll explore more why there's a difference between the used and new housing markets. In the future, housing prices, interest rates, and how many houses are available for sale will all work together to show us where the market is going. Reducing inflation might hurt the economy, but it's part of the normal cycle. The real estate industry is slow to respond. They don't report what's happening until 30 to 60 days later, and they're too focused on what the Federal Reserve is saying. They don't want to admit how bad things are underneath because they don't want to scare off their investors and shareholders. They're more interested in protecting their profits. Right now, we have two big problems. It's hard for many people to afford houses, and there's also a problem with people getting loans. Plus, there's trouble in the commercial real estate market. They have lots of office buildings where they need to pay back loans, but there aren't enough tenants. So, we're going to see more financial problems happening in the economy, kind of like a stack of cards falling down. When we look at everything together, it's hard to pinpoint one single problem. You have to use your thinking skills and see this as a mix of many factors. Now let's look at a graph that shows the changes in the price of homes in 20 major cities in the US. They've adjusted this graph to take away the effect of inflation. Inflation is when things get more expensive over time. For example, if something goes up 23% in a year, but prices in general are going up 3%, then the actual increase is about 20%. I wanted to explain this before we talk about the data. From this graph, it's clear we're not doing well right now. My big prediction is that many real estate markets will go back to the values they had around 2019. The reason I say this is because the growth between 2015 and 2019 was steady and strong. But in the last 2 years, we have had very fast and uneven growth. For the first time ever, people in real estate even asked for unemployment benefits because they thought the market would crash in 2020, but the opposite happened. This kind of growth was different from what everyone expected. So, because it was shaky growth, it makes sense that the market might go back to 2019 levels. Let's talk about the first issue, affordability. Right now, not many Americans can afford to buy a home. Only 23% of the homes for sale are within reach of the average earner. In a balanced market, about 50% of homes are affordable. We haven't seen numbers like this since 2006. Also, people owe more on their credit cards than ever before. By the middle of 2023, US credit card debt had reached over $1.03 trillion. This graph shows that people are stretched thin with their money more than ever before. Having so much credit card debt makes it hard for about 20% of Americans to get a loan because they worry about how much debt they have compared to their income. In my experience in Boise, Idaho, many buyers are waiting for conditions to get better before buying because they can't afford it right now. With all these issues, credit card debt, high home prices, and interest rates, it's clear that there's an affordability problem. So, in my opinion, prices have to come down, and they will probably drop in the next 18 to 24 months. Now, let's talk about the second issue, ghost inventory. There are too many homes that builders have built but haven't sold. This isn't like the shadow inventory from 2008. It's more like a massive surplus of homes that builders have created in the past 3 years. We're about to see all these homes flood the market. Builders didn't make affordable homes, they made expensive ones, which makes our affordability problem worse. I think builders are worried because they had to spend more on labor and materials in the last 3 years, and now they have to sell these homes when interest rates are high. This means they might have to sell them for less than they cost to build, which hurts their profits. So, in the next 18 to 24 months, builders might face financial challenges because they have to sell these expensive homes at lower prices. Let's talk about something important. There are a lot of new homes that are not being talked about in the reports or data. This is happening in many places like Boise, Austin, Vegas, and Nashville. In simple terms, we're going to have a flood of expensive new homes on the market soon. This is not the same as people selling their homes because they got low interest rates. They won't give up their cheap mortgages for more expensive ones. We see a similar issue with apartment buildings. There are lots of fancy, high-end apartments built in the last 3 years, and they're sitting empty in many places. Basically, what this means is that there's a lot of expensive property that's waiting to be sold, and it's not good for affordability. Now, let's understand why the data doesn't match reality. Many builders don't consider a home finished until someone buys it, and they don't want to pay taxes on it before that happens. So, they're holding on to these homes and not saying they exist yet. They're hoping to sell them when the market is better, so they can make more money. This means all this hidden inventory isn't counted in the surveys and data. When it eventually comes onto the market, it will drive home prices down because we won't have a shortage of homes propping up prices. I think this hidden inventory will come out all at once. The reason is that big companies that own these properties will respond to changes in the economy all at once. Right now, we're seeing unusual behavior from buyers because of the low inventory. That's the only reason prices have stayed high, despite high interest rates. For the first time, new homes are cheaper than existing ones. Builders are offering big incentives like lower interest rates, discounts, free appliances, and landscaping to get buyers. Now, let's talk about the third issue, the Airbnb bust. People rushed to buy properties for Airbnb, hoping to make a lot of money. They used special loans that let them pay only the interest. But now, they have to pay back the loans, and they can't refinance like they thought. So, they're stuck with properties that are not making them the money they expected, and they're losing value. Let's talk about regular folks who invested in properties and took on a lot of debt. Now, they can't even sell those properties because they owe more than what they're worth, and they're not making as much money from them as they hoped. This is where new investors start realizing that owning properties can get expensive. Because of all the COVID help programs, we won't see reports on loans that people aren't paying back for a while. It's more complicated now to declare these loans overdue. So, right now, this information is hidden. Now, let's discuss the fourth issue, interest rates. This is the most uncertain part of what we're talking about. In late August, the average 30-year mortgage rate reached 7.36%, the highest in over 20 years. That's why I said earlier that we have the highest mortgage interest rates in 22 years. I predict that interest rates will go up even more, maybe around 8%, and that's when the problem of affordability will really catch fire. Another thing to consider is that it's an election year, And we know that during an election, the government often tries to control the economy. I'll let you draw your own conclusions about that. But typically, interest rates ease off before an election. The question is, with prices still high and only 23% of Americans able to afford homes on the market, is it a good idea to lower interest rates now? That might make the pricing problem even worse. What we need is for prices to come down first and then slowly lower interest rates. Now, let's talk about the last point, the upcoming economic recession. Unemployment rates are going up, and we're already seeing job layoffs in many industries. So, a recession, more job losses, the problem of affordability, and a lot of credit card debt, all of this will be like adding fuel to a fire. When you think about affordability, the number of available homes, interest rates, and the issues caused by the Airbnb situation, it's all heading towards a housing market crash. In my opinion, prices will go back to where they were in 2019. But here's the good news. When markets go down, it's a chance to find good deals. So, if you have the money to buy things, you can get them at great prices. When the market eventually goes up again, which it always does, you'll gain a lot of equity in your investments. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more weekly investment tips. Leave a comment below. Happy investing!